All right, good morning, everybody. All right, everybody here is for water aerobics instructions, correct? Okay, all right. Want to make certain everybody is in the right spot. So, thanks for coming on a Saturday morning.
Thank you.
Our third, actually our fourth town hall, isn't it? Our third or fourth town hall on a specific topic. So, we're getting good turnouts. Couple of plugs here. So, Breakfast of Champions, cookies and coffee from Leppings, donated by Leppings. So, make certain you say thank you if you shop at Leppings. And Janelle, I think maybe just snuck out. Janelle, oh, there's Janelle in the back. So, Janelle set it up for us. So, thank you, Janelle. Greatly appreciate that. And Sydney, thanks for setting up the cameras here. This, like any other town hall, will get recorded. We'll put it out on the website. So we're going to do a couple of things here. One, the structure 9 to 10, 10:30-ish, depending on the Q&A. We'll go through, the park agenda. We have three things that we want to talk about on this agenda. This is the building and development town hall, the building and development that's going on in our park. So we have three things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about building and development in the green space. We're going to talk about building and development along our shoreline in that area. And then I think what most of us are interested in the trailer modifications and what's going on in the park in regards to that. So those are the three topics. We'll do some introductions here. I'll pass the mic down from 9 to 10, 10:30-ish. We'll do our spiel here, and then after that, we have some contractors around the back here. More than welcome to engage with them if you've got any projects you want going on. They have any questions asked. We have Joe Schaefer in the back there. Joe, that's Schaefer Tree. We got Tom from Vacation Land in back there. We've got Troy from Patios Plus. Dylan from H Construction. I can't read your Premier. Okay, I apologize. Bad eyes. And in the back we've got nobody. And we have Paul from Public Safety. Say hi to Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
All right. So I'll pass the mics down. We'll start down here and then move. We'll do some quick introductions and then get into the agenda.
Good morning. Scott Wyman on the Board of Directors.
Stephanie Saitman, Board of Directors. Alan Carpenter, Board of Directors.
Kelly Johnson, Board of Directors.
Pat Duzema, Board of Directors.
Jim Buchanan, Assistant Building Inspector.
Bob Johnson on the Board of Directors.
Paul Pepple, Board of Directors.
Steve Helmer, one of the Park Inspectors.
All right. So let's jump into the topics. We'll start with the green space. I'll turn that over to Jim, and we'll talk about what we're seeing going on in the green space and what we're trying to do in the green space. So here you go, Jim.
Thank you. So I've been out on a lot of your sites, and I've been out running around the park trying to give you the service that you deserve. I am a member, but right now I'm here as an employee. As you all know, the board, that we get a choice to choose who's on the board, gets to, that we choose those people, they make the rules, they hire Jeff, and then Jeff hires me. So there's a hierarchy, and there's a way we go through things. But part of what I do is every day talk to Jeff, usually between 7:30 and 7:45, bring him up to speed on different questions, and want to make sure that we're going in the right direction. So we appreciate all your questions. We appreciate what you asked, but to give you some direction in the green space, we have a lot of people that want to go into the green space. So you are a member here. Sandy Pines owns all of the property, every bit of it. Your green space is technically park area that's over and above your postage stamp or your lot lines. Those green spaces are being allowed to be built in. The rules clearly state that within 4 foot of your lot line from both sides and the back, you can be no higher than 5 inches of any built structure. So if you want to do a deck or a patio, you can go up to that lot line as long as it's 2x4s with 5/4 topping on top of it. You go beyond that, different requirements come into play. Green space is when you want to do a patio or something level that goes beyond that green space. There's been a lot of development in the green space, as you all know. Everyone has a different situation, but the rules that's been given to the park inspector is to go out to that green space, look at what's similar in that area, what's already been allowed, and keep it within that footprint. So if I go out there and someone else has gone 20 feet beyond their green space, that's pretty much the minimum, or that's the limit that I can do. I've had some people say, I've got all this area, I want to beautify it, I want to invest thousands of dollars into Sandy Pines, I want to go down this meandering trail and about 40, 50 feet behind my lot, right overlooking the lake, I want to do a patio. Nope. So it's not fair of me to give a double-sized lot to someone else when you are within your lot size. So we are looking at that on a site-specific basis, and it's based on what has been allowed before. Those are Sandy Pines rules. Those are not a government entity rule. So we do have some leeway there, but that is my leeway to look at. And anybody, I will make a decision on that. If you don't like my decision, you can then go to another situation, but I'm trying to be fair with everybody. The other situation that we've run into with green spaces, a lot of people have developed their green space, and as you know, we have a budget, it's a minimal budget, to take trees down. We are looking at trees in 3 ranges. Trees are dead trees that are a hazard, they're rotted out, the woodpeckers have made holes in them. We're looking at those first. We then go from a dead tree to a tree that has branches falling. There's no budget to take care of that. If you want to remove some branches, we will allow you to remove some branches. Good trees, great news. A lot of people want to develop their sites and take some good trees down. In discussing with the powers that be, if you do want to do that, it was like, no, we're not taking any good trees down because we don't want to just be called Sandy. We want to be called Sandy Pines. And if we eliminate all the trees that everyone's asked, we would be Sandy. So what we've done, in the event that you want to do site development on your site and you want to take some trees down, we are allowing within your perimeter, and it could be on the green space, you to add, instead of those nasty pines that are dropping needles, take a pine tree down, and we'll let you plant maybe a silver maple or an oak or something else, maybe 10 feet behind your lot in the green space. So as long as we're replacing the trees, we are now giving a little bit more leeway on that so you can do some site development. What's really not going on right now is just taking a bunch of trees down because you don't feel like raking leaves anymore. Again, we are a campground, we're an RV park, and we don't want to get to the point where we're just completely stripped and devoid of trees. Back to the green space, if you've developed your green space, at this point, developing your green space, hey, I got this tree, it's dropping branches in the area that I mow, it's making it difficult to mow. If you've enhanced that green space, you're blessed, you have a little bit of extra room, but the park is not, I'm not looking at it as justifiable to spend other people's park money to continue to enhance and bait for your beautification. So when those situations arise and you have something like that, we are having those members do it. I have a member right now that wants me to go back and take 2 trees down so they can build a beautiful patio back there. No problem. You have to pay for that beautification and taking those trees down to put your patio in if that meets the other criteria, because I don't feel it's justifiable to spend other members' park money to enhance your green space. I hope that makes sense. We're trying to do it again on a site-by-site basis. Please give me a call. Steve or myself will meet you out there and walk through some of these requirements while your lot would fit right into that situation. But I hope that explains a lot of different areas on the green space. We then have another green space area called our lakefront. And we are working very diligently, as many of you can agree to. It has become outlandishly messy with 4x4 posts, with boxes, people building kayak stands, and all this kind of stuff. We are going to start walking those areas next week, about the first half of the day, and we're going to start to enforce more cleanup on those areas where we want our beaches to get back to a non-trippable hazard. We want to get rid of some of the old 4x4s. We want to get rid of some of the mess that's around there. You have no reason to be able to store anything in the green space. People have deck boxes. They have extra patios. They have all kinds of stuff in the green space. And we are going to be really working diligently at writing and sending out a notice. One thing that we heard loud and clear last year was that people were getting fined and they were getting just a letter. Cindy has helped Steve and I by emailing everybody. We put that email together. You have 1 week to respond. In some cases here, we have health issues. We have where one member may have passed away. Just contact us. We will work with you. We're not here to be a hammer to just slam you with fines and try to make up extra money so I can take more trees down. We're here to work with you, but we're here to beautify the park for all of us. We're all members. And so we want to make sure that we continue with that beautification. We can't see everything. There's only 2 of us, Steve and I, out in the park. Anytime you see something, we would love, there's this new app my grandchildren showed me on these things called phones and iPhones. You can take a picture. There's a little bit of a Y or something, or sideways V on the bottom. You can hit that and you can forward it to inspector@sandypines.com. Those are looked at Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. Or you can send it to Steve H@sandypines.com or to myself at Jim B@sandypines.com. The Steve H goes right to his cell phone. The Jim B goes right to my cell phone. The inspector, we only can look at that right now at the office when that's opened up on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So please use that. Help us do our job better. Send us pictures of things you see that you have a question about. Send us a picture, hey, saw this on the beach in front of Boat Stake. They all have a sticker now, so you know what Boat Stake it really is. And or they're in front of this lot or that. Again, not to narc on your neighbors, but to help us beautify the park. That's our goal right now, is that we continue to beautify the park. But please be aware, starting next week, we're going to really be digging in on not only working on our lots and talking to those members where there's some weeds and some other things growing. And thank you for all the emails and pictures we've gotten from you guys already. Keep sending them in. But we really want to work on the lake area that has gotten just totally out of control. And please, 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 no matter what you're doing on the lake shore, the poles that were put in are virtually, we tried to put those, and we make mistakes, but we tried to put those about 3 foot up from what's called the high water mark. We cannot touch that high water mark in. Everything that's done in that area is required an Eagle permit. The state of Michigan owns that property. It doesn't matter if that high water mark is void of water like it is right now. That's not our property. We can't touch it. We've had some people do some very disastrous eroding or taking away of the weeds so they can have a nice pristine beach. Those weeds are there to protect our beach from washing into our lake. Our lake started out at about 16 foot deep 52 years ago. I believe right now it's probably down to about 11 feet, but it was at 12 foot was pretty much the highest or deepest points. We are a dam. Water comes in and water goes out the spillway. That sand and all that debris that's washing into the lake from everything is going into the bottom of our lake, making it shallower and shallower, and Mother Nature will eventually take back what we took from her. So we need to continue to work on that we don't have any erosion. So please, please do not just go around with rototillers or heavy-duty rakes or any other type of stuff and continue to eliminate all of the weeds. Weeds are good. You can go and you can weed whip them and make them shorter, but don't take the root systems out, because that's what's causing a lot of damage to our lake and making it shallower and shallower. But again, that green space is very important. You need to call the building offices and ask us what you want to do. We are allowing some replacement of sand in some of those areas. We want to look at those areas, but we have to be 3 foot up from the high water mark, which means nothing should be done beyond those pillars and those posts. The other item is, when we go around and start to remove those 4x4s from that lake green space, is all 4x4 posts should not be any further away from the water than what those steel posts are. Those are the only distance that those should be. If you have a 10-foot spot, the center of your boat should be on that pole at a 10-foot spot. That is your 10 feet. Pontoons are about 8.5 feet wide. Runabouts are about 80 to 90 inches wide. Come straight into that pole so that your other members can utilize the lake. If you have a right or a left, that means you have a dock space. Your dock can be centered with that post. So you have 2 foot of dock, maximum 4 foot on either side. We have allowed for wheelchair access and other reasons the dock to be alongside the post, but that means that dock can be no further than 2 feet. I had a member come into this last week say, hey, it says on my lease agreement with my membership that I have a 30 to 40 foot space. Why can't I put my dock 40 foot over, 30 foot over, so I have a beautiful swim area for my grandchildren? Because if you do that and the other one puts it over 30 or 40 feet, your boats are going to be on top of each other. And it's not going to work. You have 10 feet. If you are number 2167R, you have 10 feet from the center of that pole to the right that you can work with. If you are left looking at the lake, you can go to the left. The stickers on them have the number on them, and it says left on the left and right on the right. You have that 10 feet to work within. If you have any questions, you can come into our office. I'll try to do a better job. I have not done a good enough job of putting out a little map of what that should look like. The girls have asked me, I just have to get to it. So I'm a little busy, but I will get to it and get that out. But if there's any questions about the docks and where those go in that green space, please let us know. There'll be future information coming about where the docks can be stored. Eagle does not like to leave docks in, but anybody that puts a request for an Eagle to leave a dock in permanently, those need to be done by the end of June coming up here, or the first week of July, because it takes a very long time to be able to do that. If you want more information about that, please call our office to be able to get an Eagle permit to leave a dock in permanently if that's what you'd like to do. There are some variations and some ability for that. Docks, the big question right now, and I'm talking to Jeff about it, is our lake is going down. I believe anybody that's been here before knows that why the lake is going down is we're preparing for our dam situation, literally. And with that, and preparing for that, we want the water to go down. According to Eagle, you can be 30 inches wide up to 48 inches wide, no more than 30 feet out into the main lake. The channel is different, because if everyone went 30 foot out, you wouldn't be able to get a boat through there. But on the main lake, 30 foot out. I've got members asking me right now, hey, the water's down. I've got 5 or 6 feet there. My boat's starting to hit. Can I move my dock up? Legally and technically, no, but we will be discussing what options might be available for people so their boats don't hit. And we'll be working on that situation this week to try and find out, are we going to allow it this year in our special circumstance with the water coming down so that boats don't hit? But again, we want to be able to use our lake within the state requirements, because this lake is owned virtually by the state. It's not owned by us, even though it's considered a private lake. I hope that's answered most of your questions. Any other personal questions, please send it to that email, jimb@sandypines.com or inspector@sandypines.com, and get your the specific question about your site, or if you want to see us out there, to us. We are setting up 2-hour windows. When I go from lot to lot during the day, if a member's there and I have to talk to them, or if another member walks up, I don't want to be rude and walk away. So I can't really set a 10 o'clock. Chances are I won't be there at 10 o'clock. It might be between 10 and noon. So I'm trying to set up a 2-hour window, trying to be a little more accurate at showing up than Comcast or Spectrum is. But I know your time is valuable, but I don't want to be disrespectful to the members I'm out seeing in the park as I'm going from lot to lot. Hope that answers all your questions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Jim. Good job. All right, so let's talk about trailer modifications and modifications that are going out in the park. So we're gonna take a step back a little bit. We'll give you some background, and then we'll give you some things that we've done from getting our homework together, research, education, and then we'll talk about, hey, here's the plan that we've kind of reviewed directionally with the board, and then the board and I are actually going to have a work session on this, probably the week of the 8th, I believe is what we're targeting, to get some additional questions. We're not going to have all your questions answered today, but we're going to give you the plan that we're thinking about, how we're going to approach it, and we still have to come back to you with some stuff, because there's still some stuff hanging out there. So, let's talk about some background on this. All right, what we started to see even last year through the park inspector office development in the park, we have a permitting process, right? Permits were way down. We can see that through the financials. Permits are way down. So, shouldn't have a lot of development going on in the park, right? But when you drive around, you're seeing a ton of development going on in the park. So, taking a step back, the prior park inspector, he and I, during the off season, put the new permitting process in place. Your Sandy Pines permit, all right, that's still, there's a list in the rule book that says 1 permit, that's your Sandy Pines permit. If you are adding a porch or a deck larger than X amount of square feet, there's 1 permit, 2 permit. What we haven't done a good job in the past, and this is, before Jeff, this goes back, fill out your permit, okay, you're good to go do it. We haven't done a real good job of going and checking on if the work actually met the permit. Permits are down. We put the permit process in place. You now have to fill out a permit for those single items, those 2 items. If you filled out that permit, and this was established in January, you have to take a picture of the existing lot and the existing project, and then when you're done, submit that. Park inspector will take a look at it, may get a knock on the door, come out and take a look at your site, and then say, okay, we're good to go do it. Then after that, you need to snap a picture of the project after the fact. And then, right, does it meet the design? Does it meet the drawings? Does it meet what the original picture and description was? We'll go out and take a look at that as well, and then we're validating what's going on in the park. Through that process, we've started to see and highlight some things that are deviating from our playbook, and I'll talk about our playbook in a second. So, and I'll give you an example. We have one, probably April or May, that says, hey, I want a deck, and it's a Sandy Pines permit, and it's a 10 by 10 deck. Okay, there's no picture on there. Snap me a picture. Well, I gave you a drawing. Snap us a picture. So after about 2 weeks of arguing with this process, we got a picture snapped. The permit said we're going to replace some boards, and then we're going to add a 10 by 10 section after that. So basically, they're going to grow this deck a little bit, but under the PCI requirements, where you have to have the township come out and sign off on the work. The picture came in, there was no existing deck there whatsoever. We're like, that's kind of weird. So when we take a look at the drawing and what the individual brought up didn't match what was on the permit. So we're starting to capture some of these things, and this isn't to be authoritarian. This is to protect the park. It's not to drive revenue through the department. I've heard a bunch of this stuff. You're just doing this to increase your permits and get money for the park. That is subsequent. That's after the fact. We need to make certain that we're protecting our park because there are specific rules that we have to follow. So we instituted that process. We made a change in the park inspector's office. We now have Steve and Jim here, and we've also added Cindy. We heard the members say, "Hey, can't get a hold of anybody. There's nothing going on in that office." So we've staffed it appropriately, and I think feedback from members has been, "Hey, I don't necessarily like some of the answers that I'm getting because it's a little more stringent, but hey, there's somebody there that I can talk to, and there's somebody there that can come up to my site and take a look at the project." So we think we're doing a pretty decent job there. So, trailer modifications, what are we seeing deviating from the front? We have done as much homework as we can. We continue to do homework. So when I reference playbook, all of this discussion is taxation and maintaining our state campground license. And all of that goes back to our ANSA 119.2 and 119.5 code and specifications that's in our rule book, okay? If anybody has tried to research that, the ANSA code book is about that thick. So we have already gotten questions about, well, why don't you have a rule for everything in ANSA? All right, I don't have our rule book, but our rule book's this thick. If we do that, you're going to have, and here's our rule book today. It's pretty thick. You start adding every rule to every code in that ANSA book. I struggle with how many people actually read our rule book now. They're going to see that giant Bible, and they're just going to say, "No way." So the protection of the park is the key is 400 square foot. Period of livable space, and we need to maintain our campground status license. This is all to avoid taxation. So we found in 1998 there was a case against Sandy Pines for taxation. Tax tribunal came in and said, "You know what? You're not a park." And they didn't have Facebook back then, where hypothetically Facebook is saying, "Hey, come buy my $300,000 park model." The proliferation of information now with social media is out there. We found this court case, and what we referenced by the playbook is, and we won that court case. Sandy Pines won that court case to avoid additional taxation and maintain our state campground license. So you only have to pay that $9.40-ish, I think, quarterly tax, right? So the playbook is, number one, you have to maintain your campground status. So how do you do that? We are a seasonal park. April 15 to October 15. That's it. We close April 15. You do have access to the park, but this cannot be your permanent residence. So if we're doing that, check number one. I think we're doing a really good job on that. Number two is the 180-day rule. Back to you can't be a permanent resident, and we do track 180 days with people coming in and out. We do a pretty good job of that. Check. So we're 2 for 2 on the playbook. No permanent structures. Okay, if the state comes in and says, "Hey, you've got footings, you've got permanent structures around things attached to your park model, things of that nature," they're going to say, "Hey, this isn't a park model, this is a house. We're going to tax you accordingly." We've done a pretty decent job of making certain that footings, permanent structures, things of that nature are not taking place in the park. So what is a permanent, the definition of some of the things that were in this court case is a park model definition. So it's a temporary dwelling or vehicle having less than 400 square feet of living area or space. Designed as temporary living quarters for recreational, camping, seasonal, or travel use. Built on a single chassis, mounted on wheels, or drawn by another vehicle. No footing, you can have no footing per the codes. We're doing a pretty good job of that. And I think that definition is in our rule book as well. Recreational vehicle. A vehicle type unit primarily designed for temporary living quarters for recreational, camping, travel, or seasonal use that has its own motive power or is mounted on or towed by another vehicle. Camping trailers, fifth wheel trailers, motor homes, park models, travel trailers, and truck campers. We meet that requirement. We're doing a pretty good job there. Only one park model, RV, trailer, fifth wheel, tent, or camper per member campsite is allowed. All applicable wheels and tires must remain on the axle. We're doing a pretty good job of that. Structures must be freestanding. This is where we need to make certain that we're seeing some deviations from some of these. Porches cannot be attached. They can't be a permanent structure. Gazebos can't be a permanent structure. They have to be freestanding. Decking can't be a permanent structure. Awnings can't be a permanent structure. They have to be separate. Where we get into the most exposure that we see in the park is the 400 square foot living rule. Again, it's clear, ANSA and state law cannot exceed 400 square foot living space. What is 400 square foot living space? So we've reached out, not only we've gone through this playbook where we want to import, we've reached out to park model manufacturers. Jim and I have been down to 2 park model manufacturers. We've reached out to people that have written code. We actually had a meeting last Wednesday with the individual. He's 50 years in the industry. He has written the code for HUD, for ANSA, for RVIA. These are the definitions that we have to live by in order to make certain we are not going outside of our 400 square foot living space. Conditioned space. An area, room, or space that is enclosed within the building thermal envelope. So that's insulation, right? And that is directly heated or cooled, and that is indirectly heated or cooled. Spaces are indirectly heated or cooled where they communicate through openings with conditioned spaces, where they are separate from conditioned spaces by uninsulated walls, floors, ceilings, and where they can contain uninsulated ducts, piping, or other sources of heating or cooling. Wow, what's that mean? We'll get to that in a second. Conditioned area. That area within a building provided with heating or cooling systems or appliances capable of maintaining through design or heat loss or gain 68 degrees Fahrenheit during the heating season, or 80 degrees Fahrenheit during the cooling season, or has a fixed opening directly adjacent to a conditioned area space. So, what does that mean? If we have areas where we have taken the park model and hypothetically cut out a wall, made it an open concept, and we are conditioning our porches, central air, mini split, whatever, you have now increased your area of living space beyond your 400 square foot park model. Okay? The expectation from the law, the code experts, everybody that we've talked to protect our park and to protect our members is your park model, when it comes from the manufacturer, is a conditioned space area, 400 square feet or less, and it cannot be modified from that. Okay? So what are the modifications? We've talked about this as well. You can't cut out your walls. You can't cut out your doors. You can't cut out your windows. Removed windows, doors, and sliders, we've been told is you can't remove those either. We'll get into that in a second. Walls added to interior porches. Heating and cooling added to interior porches, where now you have all these openings and you're conditioning all of these areas. You've increased your living space. Bedrooms added to the interior porches. You have increased your living space. Conditioned air is defined as air treated to control its temperature, relative humidity, or quality. Conditioned air is the air that is heated, cooled, humidified, dehumidified, or decontaminated. So the first thing we're asking is, holy cow, we can't have any kind of air on our porches? We can't, because I don't know what you guys, but I know last week when I was sitting on my porch, it got kind of hot, right? 95-degree weather. The answer is yes and no. Each one of these areas have to remain separate. If you have a porch, you can have a mini split. You can have your window room air conditioner. You can have those things to condition that air, okay? It has to be separate from your park model. If you have cut out walls to have an open concept, now you are conditioning both areas either with a central heating and cooling unit or mini splits in that area. You are conditioning from the park model into your porch, and you've increased your 400 square foot living space. So keep it simple, people, is what we were told by the code expert. Each individual item on your site needs to be its own separate item. Your porch, you can have sliders. Now, one of the questions we asked is, okay, sliders have been removed. Is that bad? His response is yes, because you are conditioning the area. I said, okay, so what about just opening your slider? That's airflow. You have air return. If you can seal that up, close your slider, close your window, you are not conditioning that area. You can open those windows up like a residential 3-room porch. If you put heating and cooling on your residential 3-season porch, you're conditioning that area. Residential code is now that's an additional room. Okay. If you have just windows to open up, you need airflow and return. As long as you have something to seal that space, because your park model has to be waterproofed, road ready to go down the road, hypothetically, if the state comes in and says, you got to get these things out of here, you got to hook them up and get them out in 90 minutes. Now, let's be honest, we are a community. Is that going to happen? Probably not, less than 1%. But if we don't follow the playbook, this opens us up to additional taxation. And we're no longer a recreational community. We are a mobile home. We've had one place in Saugatuck. They're like, hey, we're very similar to Sandy Pines. Come on in, call us a condo community, and they're taxed appropriately. They got taxed pretty heavily. But there's probably 100 members, I think, in that community, 100 members, so they're okay with that. We have 2,163 members in this. Some people can afford these higher taxes, many people can't. If we get reclassified out of a state campground, then you're looking at sewer, you're looking at other infrastructure that you have to meet, and that's a significantly larger bill than just the tax bill. So this isn't we're trying to go after members, and this has been a gray area for a long time. We understand that. We got to pull this back we have to get it compliant. So what's the game plan? So some of the corrective actions that we've talked about are those items 1 through 3. We're doing a really good job. Again, we are doing a good job maintaining our campground license and showing that we're a seasonal park. We're enforcing our 180-day rule. We're doing a really good job on no, you can't build it with footings and things of that nature because it's a permanent structure. We have to look at that 400 square foot rule. So it is state law, and in order to protect that, what we've done is, one, we've had 2 meetings with contractors, and a lot of the contractors that were in that meeting are here today for kind of the open house. We gave them a letter, no trailer modifications going forward. Any new project, you cannot cut out walls, you cannot cut out doors, you cannot extend a window and door to make it an open concept. You cannot do that, period. If you do, and we find out you've done it after the fact, after our meeting, you will be fined and or removed from the park. We had PCI at that meeting. And PCI, if you don't know what PCI is our township code inspector. We'll get into PCI in a second as well. Number 2, so that was in April. In May, we sent out member letters, basically the same letter that we gave to the contractors. Moving forward, as of this season, no trailer modifications. You can't call one of our contractors and say, nobody will find out because I got my windows closed and my curtains drawn. Go ahead and cut this out. No trailer modifications, period. We can't do that. The other thing that we're doing moving forward is there were 2 resolutions that were read on Friday at the board meeting last Friday, not yesterday, but the last Friday, about trailer modifications, porches on walls. We posted that out there, and the last I looked, I want to say there was less than 5 or 6 comments on those resolutions. So we are, part of this workshop that we're having in a couple of weeks is those resolutions will get passed to clearly define a lot of the stuff that we're talking about that is already there in our playbook and in our rules, but we're going to clearly define what you can and can't do without having to go through every single code item in the ANSA code book. Okay. New projects moving forward have to become compliant. You will have to become compliant. If you order a porch and all of a sudden we find out that a wall has been cut out, you have to get that compliant before that permit gets approved. Inspectors are coming out, they're taking a look at things. If you have any of these deviations, you have to become compliant. And what we're trying to show with the state is through attrition, we are correcting any of these deviations that we may have in the park. Sale, resale, transfer. Sales team has been put on notice, our park inspectors, any of these things, walls on porches, cutouts, things of that nature, you're going to have to get those compliant before Sandy Pines will sign off on that. That's what we're doing going forward. Okay. There's a lot of people out there going, oh, I see guys, what's going on? So what's going on with the stuff that's in the park that we would call like retroactive? So existing, how do we clean that up? We do have a partial plan in place that we're reviewing with the board, and based on park manufacturers and the code experts that we've been talking to, a couple of things. Park model trailer RV must be put back to waterproof state. So it has to be back to waterproof state. That's how it was when it came from the manufacturer. That's how it has to get back to. All structures have to be separate. We are working with a couple of individuals, mainly this guy that has 50 years in the industry of writing code. Can he give us engineered, certified, stamped drawings for, I have a 6-foot opening, I have an 8-foot opening, I have a 12-foot opening. Give us those drawings. If a member has to correct this, we can provide those drawings to the members. They can find a contractor to do this work per the drawings, and then we will have one of these inspectors come in and certify that the opening has been put back to meet the requirements of these drawings. They will not recertify the park model. If we've done any modifications, they will not recertify that. They don't know what other things have been done in the park models, but they will recertify the walls, window put back, things of that nature. They're open to supporting us on that requirement. So it sounds a little worse than what it is. What I'm trying to say is, I'm trying to be positive here. If we've cut out our walls, it is as easy as, here's a drawing. I'll take an example of one that I do know. Wall has been cut out. Okay, in order to do that, to support that opening, you have 2x4s, we've cut those out. Now we made this opening. There's been a header put in there now, which is actually structurally more sound than what it came from the park model manufacturer. You put those 2x4s back, you close up the wall, you waterproof the back end with tie back or any kind of waterproofing, and then you put siding on it, you're good to go. So it is not that difficult to do. It's trying to get somebody to come back and sign off and certify that it's back to a waterproof state in just this area and your park model is good to go. That's where we're continuing to have discussions with, again, a couple of companies to do this. So the other thing that we're going to be looking at is, we will start through attrition. There has been discussions, a sunset clause. What does that mean? How long? I have no, hypothetically, if I've done this, I have no intentions of selling. I'm not going to transfer it because, maybe I should be somebody else. But I'm young. I'm not going to transfer this. I'm going to keep this for the next 50 years. So I don't have to do anything. We don't know yet. Okay, we're looking at a potential sunset clause where legally everything has to be compliant by X date. We're talking with our legal team about that as well. Fully transparent, we don't know if there's 100 of these models out here that are like this, or 2,000 of the 2,163. We don't know what that is. We have an idea, but again, this is to make certain that we won in 1998 based on this playbook. This is the only thing that we deviated from the playbook, and we've got to reel that back in. Does that make sense? I know it's not fun. Some of you out there might have inherited this through for sale by owner, sale through the park, whatever. We get it. We're going to treat these on a case-by-case basis. We're still working on, yes, through attrition as new things pop up. Sunset clause, we don't have an answer yet. We don't know if we're going to have one. We don't know if we do have one, how long that'll be. This is still very fluid for us, but it does have to get fixed. It's quite honestly, it's been ignored for a while, and we just can't ignore it. I'll open it up to anybody on the board, Ellen, or anybody. You guys have any questions, comments? Okay. All right. Any questions, comments from, yeah, Paul?
Big scenario.
Can you name and cite?
I have a door that's not there anymore. Can I sell
Once you get a new door, put it back, yes.
Understanding the only way that you know who's been modified is when you was sold. Or is there something else that's going to happen to the exam?
So the question is, the only way that we know who's been modifying these is through sale through the park or when they come up for sale. Is that your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, I would say the majority of that is yes, but we'll see other modifications on other inspections. So we do have an idea of some of them outside of yours isn't up for sale, hypothetically. I'm not saying that you did this, right? Yours isn't up for, they're looking at getting a new, we are marking these things down to try and track. We don't know how many there are out there. First thing is, I'll be quite honest with you, the ones that we've really captured the most, for sale by owner, Facebook. those are the ones that are popping up in this process that we're starting to catch these.
If our park ever defaulted, and we had to go to pay taxes, so each site would be taxed as
I don't have an official answer for that. How I understand it is hypothetically. So if you look at 1998, okay, the two townships came in and said, hey, the value of each park model in Sandy Pines in 1998 was $30,000. How I understand it, they would take $30,000, that's the assessed value. They would take $30,000 of all of the sites times 2,163. Sandy Pines would get that bill, and then we would have to disperse it to the entire community. And that's a big number, and we don't want to do that.
it would be very complicated to make that fair.
Fair statement. Absolutely, fair statement. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Andrea Twig, Site 50. I have two questions.
Sure.
One, we just got a new trailer about a year ago, and our trailer came from the manufacturer without a slider. Like, it was shipped to us that way. So then it came into the park with the seal approved. So then, is that really a modification because it was approved that way?
Great question. So we are aware of some of those situations, and we are addressing those with the park model manufacturers. So I don't have an answer for you yet. My initial indication would be if the park model manufacturer sent it that way. I don't know what your contract reads, but how did it get here? Because over the road, it has to be sealed, waterproof.
So then if I just put a piece of plywood back up, then that's how it was shipped, it was a piece of plywood.
If it
Or
was
OSB. I don't
okay,
know.
so if it was OSB waterproof, then that is legally, you can waterproof that area that way.
Okay. Then my second question is like, if we applied for a permit and we got a permit and you signed off on it, and we still have a permit, then how are we expected to now like have to pay for all these changes when you signed off saying that it was okay for us to put in these things, you approved it, and now you want us to now pay for it, pay for the changes when you said it was okay for us to do it?
So that, I think, fair statement. My answer to that is, that's why we're doing a case-by-case basis, because I have not found, based on what we pulled from members' files, I have not found one scenario like that.
So like my heating and cooling system that heats my porch and my trailer. So if I pull my permit that says I can do that, so if I have my permit that says you signed off, then I'm okay. I don't need to do a mini split.
If you have the documentation, and this goes to everybody, if you have the documentation, absolutely, we'll look at that as a case-by-case basis.
And including then, if it's okay, because again, I have the permit that says you guys allowed my cutout, because we just had our trailer shipped April of 2023. And we just had West House put our porch on. And we have all the permits that said we didn't need a slider.
If you have your permits, bring the documentation, and we will address that on a case-by-case basis. My caveat to that is, like anything else in residential code as well, if you are going to make a change and make something different 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you will have to become compliant.
So if I sell, I'll have to become compliant? Because I already have the permits that said if you allowed it, so then why would I sell, do I have to become compliant because you allowed it?
So think of a house, when you go through an inspection, pull the permits, if they're not compliant to current code, has to become compliant to code. Okay? Oh, Jim, did you have anything that you wanted to add? Anything? Okay, all right. Let's get a couple more questions and then Jim, yes ma'am.
Hi, John. Christine Hoy, 974.
Yeah.
This is not hypothetical. We're under contract. We're closing in 2 weeks, hopefully. We have a 2-year-old park model, and when we came in, we hired Jamestown and other places. They pulled all the permits, and everything else is compliant, but our slider, 5-foot slider, was taken out and framed. What do? I'm leaving, and I don't even know how to get somebody to make changes that fast.
So I would say set up an appointment with Jim and I, and we'll figure it out. We'll try to work with you on that.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Jordan.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim. We added a porch on the back of our place. When we got the permit, my husband and I talked and thanked you for allowing us to open up our place because it was a safety reason. My husband will be 88 this year. And if there's a problem with our units, statistically, it's in the kitchen. And that means we have to try to get through the kitchen, which is not going to be feasible, or go out a window, which was not feasible and being done in a timely fashion. And we explained that, and you told me, and I appreciate it, that we couldn't move our bedroom to the porch that we were putting on. And I assured you that the footprint of the trailer would maintain our bedroom, and that was not our intention. Our intention was a safety issue. We got a permit. We also got permits from Salem Township for the building and electrical, which was approved. We came back this year, we found out that a subcontractor, because unfortunately Jamestown lost their owner, Jerry, was told that they had to tear our porch down. We were never notified. So that preceded me calling you and asking you what's going on. And you explained that there were issues with the prior park inspector and that you couldn't find permit applications or anything. And I said, I have stuff. We set up a meeting. I showed up at your office and Mr. Buchanan was there too. And you had all 3 permits that had been applied for our unit. You told me, you signed these. Did you read it? And I admitted I signed one, which was for the deck, because I filled that out. The other 2 were submitted by Jamestown. We trusted in Sandy Pond to be our guardian when we were trying to follow all your codes and what you requested. You've had those permits when I showed up for the meeting with you and Jim, so it wasn't as if they were lost. Your inspector never called us and said, you need to come down and also sign the application that was submitted by Jamestown. We tried to do what you asked us to do, and now we're being told, tear it down, or you've gone and got our plans from Vacation Land that you want us to put it back to where it was. Can't do that because, quite frankly, we can't identify the product because it's no longer available. We understand that when we sell our unit, because Mike and I are not going to be here 50 years, if we are, we'll be on some record. We're trying to live within your rules, but they can't come as an afterthought. And I know what happened with the state with the case because I've done some research. Salem Township was left with the bill. The state of Michigan came in and asked Jamestown to appraise. They did. St. Franks took it to court. They lost. The state of Michigan never compensated Salem Township for what they spent to do it. A few years after that, the state of Michigan came back in again and wanted Jamestown, Salem Township, to go appraise. Salem Township, we're not doing that. So they dropped it. I was concerned when you were talking about the property taxes. We don't own the property, so it's not a property tax, it's an assessment. all of our units are on wheels, so that's not what's being assessed. The only thing they can assess are the decks, the porches, and our sheds. And I understand the concern that you're expressing, but you have no idea how many hundreds of units in here that have made modifications. I understand wanting to bring it up to code, I understand attrition, but perhaps the best way is move forward and say no more, no must, and attrition. You just listed, and I'm not talking to you as an individual, but when I say you, it's the entity saving time.
Yep.
Just listed a unit for sale that was showing pictures with the sliders out, windows gone. Why are you allowing it to be listed that way?
So there's a lot to unpack there, and I will answer almost everything. I will try and answer everything that you had there, Joanne, because you're right. You and I did have a meeting on this. One critical area of your commentary that you failed to mention is, you're right, we do have the permits from your file. Every single one of those permits say, per Sandy Pines rulebook. Per Sandy Pines rulebook, you are not to increase your livable space by 400 square feet. You did that. I have no documentation of here's what I'm going to do and here's what I did. So you have a permit that says per Sandy Pines rulebook. The expectation from you and a member that has that, I can almost guarantee I would say 99% of those permits that are out there say per the Sandy Pines rulebook. And the Sandy Pines rulebook is clear, you're not to increase your 400 square feet. Your comment on Salem Township, PCI approved this. PCI approved with stipulations. What you have to me and what you sent with Jim, and Jim was in this meeting, if I'm misspeaking in any way, he will correct me, but you have a document that says PCI came here and has directionally reviewed and approved the following with the following stipulations. They never went into your trailer and did an on-site review of your porch. If they would have gone, and we've talked to PCI on this, if they would have gone on that porch, they would have immediately demanded that it be removed because it is a separate room. Okay. Now back to, I completely agree with your commentary on 1998. State of Michigan came in and said Salem Township, Monterey Township, you will go after Sandy Pines for taxation. State of Michigan backed out of it. Completely agree that the township got left hanging with the bill. Okay. From 1998 to now, in probably 4 years, because the individuals that are there will probably rerun and get reelected. After those 4 years, they're done. Okay. And once they're done, you get somebody new in there. We are the largest campground in the state of Michigan and the second largest in the United States. If somebody's looking for tax revenue and somebody's looking to come after somebody and make an example, this is the place. And we need to make certain that our playbook is followed and we don't open up you and you and you and you and you and our 2,163 members to something that we can't pay for. Because then Sandy Pines becomes no more.
I appreciate that, but are you saying that Mike and I didn't come into your office and thank you for doing that it would allow us to go out quickly?
Joanne, I will tell you the same thing that I'll tell you the same thing that when Jim was in my office and when people were standing out in the hallway. I have people coming into my hallway in my office every day thanking me for things. My comment to you is, you're welcome. My expectation is you followed the rules, you had the permit process, and everything was done accordingly. You have permits in your file that have a signature from a Sandy Pines employee that says approved per Sandy Pines rulebook. And that's what you have in your file.
So
next question.
Oh no. You have to.
Yes, sir.
Brian V103. My question is with replacing existing HVAC units.
Yes.
Okay, so my existing one had an air conditioner that has ports in the house. So I just replaced it with a new one. Are we gonna stop anybody else from installing these? To feed both the porch? Because I can take mine and I can eliminate it at any time to the porch.
Yeah. So yes, we actually have started that process. We've got one or two right now that unfortunately their projects are being held up because of that conditioned space area definition.
Okay.
Would you clarify how we can air condition the porch area?
Yes, so question was, can you clarify how we can condition the porch area? So again, you can condition the porch area per code through design or heat loss or gain of 68 degrees Fahrenheit during the heating season and 80 degrees Fahrenheit during the cooling season. So that's the range. So what does that mean? So you can put a mini split on your porch. You can put the window air conditioner on your porch. You can put, I think there's a rolling air conditioner you can put on your porch. Almost like, yeah, an electrical one, almost like a space heater or space cooler. You can do that. What you can't do is have a central unit condition everything. Does that make sense?
If you have a split unit, because I've seen some, you have a split unit on the porch, you have one in the trade, aren't they using the same outside unit to run on?
Now you're getting above my pay grade on that because I struggle to build a campfire, so I'm gonna deviate that to Jim.
Okay, hey, thank you. Number one, if I could please, a little. Just a minute. Number one, if I could please, I'd like to pull the reins back in. We are all members. We are trying to solve a problem that we're coming up against. And if you think back and you look at a little bit of history, 2 years ago I was on that dam with 14 people from the state that looked out our lake and said they plugged up a drainage ditch and made this place. We are blessed by the foresight of the people 54 years ago that made this place to us that those gentlemen said would never, ever, ever happen today. If we go to a taxation situation, a lot of those people that have blessed us with this place will lose their place because, like my mother-in-law, they're on a fixed income and can't afford any more money. Because we're a membership, we need to work for all the members, not those that have the wherewithal to pay all the taxes and all the new infrastructure that would be required. So if we could pull it back in and remember and try to take care of the people that have blessed us with this place in the beginning and work for the entire membership, which is what we're trying to do, that would be a great start as far as I'm concerned. Another thing of history, so just for that history is that. Another thing for history is when I talked to Ralph tried to get a hold of the state because he worked for the state in Lansing. When he tried to get a hold of them, at that point, MDEQ was running the campground division. They basically told him, it's the low-hanging fruit, we're in charge of campgrounds, we really don't care. And so that wasn't the case. During 2020, Eagle, the new massive entity for the state of Michigan, took over and got a department in here. We know what 2020 was. That good old COVID. People didn't come out of their houses, especially government employees, to come and do their job or to go out to the field and grouping, and they're meeting about updating these rules for this. So everyone's saying, what has changed? A lot has changed, and now Facebook and everything else, we're now advertising a RV for $300,000. So things have changed massively. Also what has changed is PCI has told me as a builder, and I've been a builder for 40 years, that they don't care from siding to siding of the RV because RVs that travel down the road every weekend from campground to campground are under ANZA 119.2 where they have a slide out or they're just a basic unit, and The park model RV law came into effect as ANZA 119.5. The gentleman that we went and talked to is part of that. So when we were approved to do a lot of these things, or when we thought we were okay to do a lot of these things, because my model trailer was delivered without a door in it, that was what we thought was legal. We're finding out that those were not sent out properly, and that ANZA has actually cracked down on the manufacturers to only send a unit out. And the way I understand it is Vacation Land is no longer shipping any units without any doors or windows that are closed all the way. And so there's some things changing because of what's going on. So I think that history for all of us is very important, that we know, and we're trying to keep up with changing times. The expert who's in the process of rewriting the code, much like the state code that Michigan follows is a national code for builders, and which PCI follows, is now happening in the RV industry. This man is being asked to rewrite some of that code. He's very, very knowledgeable. Jason, if anyone can remember that. I'm dating myself, but it had files everywhere. And I'd ask this question, or Jeff would ask this question. Just a minute. Keep going. He'd dig through a file and pull up this book. This is what the code says. He knew it, but he actually wanted to read it verbatim and make copies. The problem, but don't just bring me the problem and drop it on my desk. Find me a solution. Jeff has been very, very diligently trying to find a solution for the problem that we've run into head on. We are all members. Let's work together to solve this. Because if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Let's all find a solution to work together to keep this place for those people that have blessed us with this place all along, and not kick them out because the rest of us have the wherewithal to pay the extra fees, and we're going to push them aside. These board members were hired by 2,167 or 63 people, not by 100 or 200. So again, let's work together to solve this. That's what I've seen this man do diligently. You don't have to like our answers, but we're trying to bring you the knowledge that we found out about. Your question, sir. If I'm talking to these gentlemen that do the HVAC, as I understand it, you have certain units. Jeff just read the code off about keeping a 68-degree temperature. So the 3-season patios have to now go back to a non-thermal situation where they're not 3 inches or 4 inches thick. They're not 2x4 constructions with insulation. They have to go back to a 2-inch non-thermal wall so that they are not a thermal envelope insulated room. Can we keep an insulated roof? Yes, because the stronger roofs hold our heavier snow load that we're now required to carry. We can't do an insulated floor on them. So the envelope of the RV, the floor's insulated, the walls are insulated. That non-transfer, he mentioned in there a non-insulated wall. You can't intentionally go and make an opening in your wall, remove the window and the door, and take the insulation out so that that heat will transmit to the sunroom, so that's part of your living square footage. This man was very, very clear. The minute you condition that air, which is what the HUD code, which comes back from 1972 and 1988, is what they're using for RVs. That's how he's rewriting some of this code, is very important so we don't go over that 400 square foot space. You cannot make a thermal porch, no more 3-inch rooms, no more thermally insulated sunrooms that can carry this. When you talk to the HVAC guys, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, we had a member already say, yeah, I got down to 30 degrees and my HVAC unit, my mini split, wouldn't heat my patio. That's because some of those are designed that at 32 degrees, they can't draw heat out of the air anymore if they're a lower valued unit. And you can get units that go down to that temperature. You can get units that'll draw heat down to 20 degrees. You can get units that'll draw heat down to 0 degrees. We cannot maintain our patio enclosures to be able to maintain a 68-degree temperature year-round, or it becomes a conditioned space. So that's what we're trying to do, is separate the unit by code so that we can continue to be successful if and when the tax tribunal comes back to try to get revenue from us. We need to protect the park and all of its members. That's what we're trying to do here. So, sir, you're supposed to go back to where, yes, your main unit is heated and cooled by one unit. Can it be a triple head unit with 3 separate thermostats? The way we understand it, yes it can, as long as your thermal RV unit, floor insulated, roof insulated, walls with all the doors and windows and insulated, is separate from the patios, is separate and stays separate. I don't think I can be any clearer than that. Have we made mistakes? Yes. But let's solve this as a membership together to move forward. Mistakes were made. I'm sorry. I'm trying to come and give you the best information we can to keep our park what it is an RV park. Yes, sir.
So I've got my heat pump. It heats, or it runs in through the house.
Yes.
And then goes to the porch.
Yes.
Am I allowed to block off to the porch and use it at my house?
Yes, sir, you are. Stop it from heating both entities. Only heat one entity. Put a window shaker or something else in, or talk to some of our contractors, which is part of the reason we wanted a meet and greet today about doing a separate unit. That was a mistake, and I will say, PCI came to us, and that's why a couple of the units got stopped during production here. We didn't realize that unit was heating and cooling both, and the members or the contractors came back and said, hey, this is what was in the meeting. We just put a new trailer in, or we just did this, or we just did that. Can we do this? No, based on what PCI has come about, they changed their view of we can no longer do that. So that is, yes, you can do that and get something separate to cool and heat the porch. The porch can be non-thermal envelope, and the porch is not supposed to be able to maintain a heat of 68 degrees throughout the winter.
My question is that some of that thought doesn't make sense. What I'm saying is, if you have a thinner wall on your porch, and a thinner wall if you have a 3-unit place where you got a park model in the middle and one on the right and one on the left, if you have a thinner wall, and the only reason we have a thicker ceiling is for a snow load, we're going opposite of what the EPA is saying. They want us to insulate till the nines so that we don't use more energy. If we are going to heat or cool one of those porches that we have that are really attached but not attached, we're saying we're going to air condition them with a small air conditioner, a window air conditioner, or we're going to get a split unit, and then those are thinner walls that are going up, and we're going to use more energy than ever before. I think you could bring this, and the EPA is going to say, why are you guys doing that? You have a 4-inch wall on the outside, you got a 6-inch ceiling, you have insulated walls from your home, and so someone wants to put something that's going to go down the road. I understand going down the road, keeping it sealed, but I, as a board member, can't fathom the EPA is going to say, make your walls thinner, use more energy, and keep yourself cool. I don't see that logic, and I guess I don't want to be a rebel on the board, but at the same token, there are 300 to 500 or 600 homes that are heated through vents in the floor. That's not a structural issue. The vents on the floor is not a structural issue. If you take a header out, that's a structural issue. If you open the doors, we have a home, we have a porch on the side, we left our slider in, and we close it in the winter in case it falls in. If that roof came in, I want the slider closed. The point is that I can't believe that we would petition it or even go to court on it, that they're going to say, yes, make thinner walls, use a different air conditioner, and you're also going to have more energy used. And if you have 3, let's say you have a park model in the middle, you have an AC unit. I bought my park model without an AC unit. I don't have an air conditioner for that. I'm using my heat pump. Heat pump is much more energy efficient. And also, I don't need to use nearly the amount of gas when I only have a hot water heater and a stove. I think we have to think this thing through and continue to deal with it. I don't think we need to jump this quickly. And if I can see, people are saying, well, we're going to sell. Well, then you got to put it back together and somebody else is going to see the same sort of issue. I'm sorry.
So again, in his statement, common sense would make sure that sense. Does the government always have common sense? Okay, so again, being educated, let me explain something. I'm a home builder. I do additions a lot and I have for 40 years. There is a certain code that I have to punch in the values of the addition. When I put a sunroom addition on an existing home, and people don't want to pay more taxes, they want a 3-season patio, which is what we're supposed to call these, and this is from the code expert for HUD, because this is ANZA and a totally different code. This is a temporary RV living, which is getting very prevalent. Some of you might have a place in Florida like this, a place in Arizona like this, a place in Texas like this. You can go back and forth to different units, and it explains that in the code for an RV park. But when I fill that code out, I have the choice to make it an all-season room or part of the house, which is taxed in a residential community, totally different. When I open the patio door up on a residential house, that's automatically an all-season room, and I have to punch in on the computer res, and I have to prove that I meet all the engineering data for the high efficiency. I have none of that if I call closure. What the specialist is telling us is 400 square feet is an RV park. So people that aren't aware of the different codes aren't aware of that, and I can understand where his common sense would come from that level. The truth of the matter is the government has separate codes for these. We are falling under if we want to go under the residential code, which is what he's talking about, then that whole thing is 1,000 square foot, 1,100 square foot, whatever. If we want to stay under the RV, which is what we did for the taxable case back in 1998, we need to go back to their patio enclosures, and they don't have the ability to maintain 68 degrees year round and go back to the 180 days. We're just taking the code expert that is helping rewrite the code and using his information under ANZA and under RV law, and we're separating it because we're not trying to be residential. If we want to go residential, and that's what the majority of the members are, an expert, but we did spend a lot of time with him.
Okay. One last comment on that, and yeah, completely, it doesn't make sense, but back to who we are. We are a state campground. We are seasonal, 6 months. We're not supposed to have homes, porches, heated to that level. That is residential. If we want to go residential, then we can open this whole place up as a residential and we'll be taxed accordingly. We are a seasonal campground. We have park models, and if we put a porch on it, your porch is supposed to be 3-season, not heated and cooled to the level of a home. That's our constraint. Whether we like it or not, whether it makes sense or not, those are the requirements that we have to adhere to. So we are coming up on about 6 minutes, so we'll take a couple other questions, and one right behind you first. Right, yep, go ahead. Roger will give you a mic, and then I'll get you next, okay?
My voice is big enough. I'm Jolene Overheiser, Lot 120. You had said, I'm talking to Jim, sorry, just to clarify. You said we could take a tree down if we replaced it, but then you also said that it's okay to take a tree down to enhance the green space. So I'm just asking if you could clarify that.
Okay, so trees in green space are rotted, dangerous, is what we're looking at and putting on a list to meet within our budget. Branches, you can justify either taking the branches yourself or you can hire someone for branches in the green space. Perfectly good. We're not taking any of them down in the green space. For development of your lot, I can't get my new golf cart garage in. I can't get my new trailer in. Rotted tree, you can pay to take it down, it's on your lot. Trees with branches, bad branches falling, you can take it down, perfectly good tree. Please plant another good tree for it. Clear?
And then I have one last thing.
Yes.
When the grandkids come, can we pitch a tent in our yard?
At this point, you can do a temporary tent on top of one main unit.
Okay.
That's our rules, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Becky from N196. Okay, so from what I'm understanding, I need to put my slider back in and get a new air conditioner for my porch and somehow suck out the insulation from the porch.
At this point, sucking out the insulation is extreme, but definitely put the slider back in and separate the unit. And if you get a different unit, just don't make it super efficient at this point because it's a 3-season room, not supposed to be truly conditioned air, which can maintain 68 degrees year-round.
So how urgent are these changes? I mean, you're talking, you talked about the taxation being a financial thing. You know, we're talking many thousands of dollars.
Yes, we are.
To correct something that was approved by Sandy Hines. We
Yep.
got permits, we had builders that are approved.
Yep.
We did everything the way we thought we were supposed to.
We all did, yes.
And so now you're asking us, I mean, it could be many, many thousands of dollars to fix this. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily should all be on.
Right, so very valid, that's why we're saying we'll take this by case basis, right? So we'll give you this scenario when the state came in, I started in the fall of 19, right? One of my first meetings was with Gene, Ralph, and the new state campground person who came in and said, I see a bunch of sheds that are bumped up against the trailers and bumped up against this. You know that's a violation of the 4-foot rule. Everybody has to be compliant within the next 30 days. Well, we're in September. There's nobody here, basically, right? Because if you remember, there was concerns about COVID, and I did not bring COVID into the park. I just continue to say that because that was my first season. But we worked with the state on the processes through attrition. So if you get a new shed, if something changes, very similar to residential, if something changes, then it has to be brought into code. That's kind of our playbook now. It worked before. If you come to us today and say, hey, listen, I want to add a porch, or I want to change my porch out, or I'm going to change my old parking lot for my new one, that's a change. We would then say, all right, you're going to have to get things up to code. If you're sitting here concerned with, hey, I've got all this stuff, but we're in kind of a stay position unless you are looking to do something different to your site now. That's our process right now. We want to show that we are doing something about this, definitely on a go-forward basis. The workshop with the board is going to be, what about the stuff that's happening in the park right now that you may not, hey, 5 years, you may not have anything that you want changed on your site. Are we going to say that's okay because we're going to catch it when you sell it, transfer it, or do something different? Maybe. Are we going to say, no, maybe 3 years or 4 years out, it has to be done because we have to show compliance? We're still working through that right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I would just suggest that you take into consideration that just because people have a porch doesn't mean that they are so wealthy that they could afford to do all of these repairs, which are really expensive. If you look, I don't live in section 6, but almost every one of those places has HVACs.
Right.
And they have the porches with, sliders and all of that. So we're talking, mini splits are what, $6,000? And, redoing all of this is extremely expensive and built and sold by Sandy Hines to us as it was. So I know you're trying to adhere to code, but also there has to be some thought of the intent and how we address.
Yes, and we are trying to thank you. We are trying to take all of that information into consideration. We get it. One, it's financial, and two, it's emotional, right? So we are trying to weigh all of that and still get back to our playbook, right? So yes, thank you for your comments. We are not trying to be punitive on this. We're trying to fix a problem as best we can that accommodates everybody. Young man in the green back there, and then we'll do the Joanne next.
So, existing in the marketplace, why is that not happening here?
Yes, good comment, yes. If you look at our grandfather rule, our grandfather is, if it's a state law, because we are a state licensed campground, we have to be compliant with state law. So if we're not compliant with state law, which some of these are not, per ANSA 1192 and 5, we have to get compliant. Otherwise, we lose our state campground license. Good question. And that will go back to, I think somebody said, hey, let's just leave it as is. You know, we get that a lot, the grandfather. We can grandfather a Sandy Pines rule. And we have done that. We have looked, and that's why we continue to say case-by-case basis. We can look at these things on a case-by-case basis. If it's a Sandy Pines rule, we'll work with you. If it's a state law, Eagle, DNR, MDEQ, whatever alphabet you want to bring in here, if it's a state, we have to comply by that. Otherwise, our license is in jeopardy. One more question. Go ahead, Joanne.
This has nothing to do with it. You talked about the high water mark down to the waterway.
Yes.
Leaving the onions, in my case, and I am, in the sand. There's confusion with some of the community about, can we still have the ability of raking out the dead leaves and rotted wood that's fallen into the lake to help control the muck?
Yes, you can take out any debris that is sitting on the bottom. We don't want you to pull out root systems. Thank you for leaving the onions in. At least I know where to go get some. But as far as the root system, and like one gentleman wanted to do, and I understand that, rototill into the lake, and you're disturbing the entire soil. But yes, raking out the leaves and in some case the dead seaweed that's blowing up that the boats have chewed up, that is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But putting machinery, skid steers, rototillers, anything from that high water mark, what we've been told by Eagle, from 3 foot up into that water cannot be done. So thank you. I hope that was clarification. Is that okay?
Thank you, Jeff.
Yes, thank you.
All right, we are at your time. Thank you for the good questions. I know it's difficult. We're going to work through it together. We're trying to do the best we can to protect you, protect the park,